Good morning, everybody. This is Marco Marinocci. I'm the founder and CEO of Bridge. We are based out of Silicon Valley, in fact, San Francisco, actually at our innovation center. I'm glad to be discussing about topics that we are very passionate about, in particular, the future and the current macro trends of startups, in particular, dealing with the world of clean tech and the macro trends that we can witness from our point of view. A couple of words about what we do for a living. We're an innovation advisory firm based here in San Francisco, but with very international background and views and presence. We manage and we filter solutions in particular for governments and corporates among the world of more mature startups, and we do that at scale. Some of the activity and the numbers that I'll be presenting are actually based out of a presentation that we did not too long ago in cooperation with our partners here at Crunchbase. This is a report about the state of development of the economy of innovation and startups, in particular with a focus in Silicon Valley. The one thing that we see that very clear from our research is that the economy of innovations is definitely growing at a very fast pace. There's not just a single hub around the world, and that what makes this new movement more and more interesting as it's becoming more and more global. From the point of view of the throughput, though, and of the outcome of this economy of innovation, is still Silicon Valley is still top of the different regions that can be compared. So if you see here in some of the data in the background of what I'm showing, the number of scale-ups have been produced every year by Silicon Valley. This is back to the last couple of months, is still significant compared to the rest of the other ecosystems around the world, and not just the number of entities. This is the second line, companies and scale-ups that have raised more than $1 billion. So it's not just unicorns, but entities that have physically raised more than $1 billion, as well as the number of companies that raised more than $100 billion is becoming significant, and you can still see how that compares. Silicon Valley compares to the rest of the world. And in particular, if we are looking at the amount of startup produced by the population, so in comparison to the size of the population, Silicon Valley is still probably an order of magnitude larger than everybody else, as well as the ability of fundraising. So the amount of money being fundraised and being dedicated to startups based on the GDP of the region. So you can see actually Silicon Valley GDP is really concentrated into the world of startups. But that's just to, as an overall look of how the growth of startups in the last few years has impacted most of the economies. This is just from the last few months. The amount of IPOs that have brought a technology company public has definitely increased, has boomed. Here, if you see in some of the data, how just in the last 10 years that has evolved, in particular 2021, and this is still partial, so it's missing the last couple of months of the year. You can see both in size and in number of deals, a number of new IPOs, really the concentration that has happened in the last year. So again, if we compare to look at count the number of unicorns, that is the number of companies that are still private, but that have a private evaluation of at least $1 billion. Look at what happened in the last few months, in the last few quarters. And again, this is just up to August and compared to just last year. So we're really looking at an environment where the world of innovation and the world of startups is becoming more and more central to all the different economies. Just compared to a year ago, if you can see here the number of startups that have become a unicorn. In red, you can see the data for 2020. In black, you can see the data up until October of 2021. Is significant the accelerated growth that the number of unicorns have experienced across the world. So it's definitely a global phenomenon. The other global phenomenon that is that we are um, uh, seeing from our perspective is really the interesting growth of the climate tech. So as a particular area, a subject matter where venture capital has been lately concentrated on, you can see here in this slide the amount of capital being fully deployed today in the world of climate tech and green tech out of three main hubs, US for the majority, as well as China, and with some important push from Europe as well. This is definitely a trend that is growing. You can see here also in percent the amount of deals that have been closed and negotiated in the world of climate tech. This is definitely something that is driven not just by the passion of the young innovators, but is also to some extent contextualized by the support of government and government policies. In Europe, probably one of the first large group of economies that have started pushing through the Green Deal a couple of years ago, the European Commission, and this is starting slowly to produce an amount of innovation that is coming grassroots. So the investment is just one element of that movement. The other one that will be seen pretty quickly is the amount of startups that will be generated along the same lines. Lastly, this is, I think, another very important topic that we're seeing experimenting in the market. This is pretty new, and it is now going under the title of the Great Resignation. So 2021 will be remembered potentially as the year where a vast amount of employees have decided to take their future with their hands and have expressed the interest of resigning from the current job. So those are some of late statistics coming from a couple of weeks ago. 40% of the global workforce is ready to quit now. How many of those will be actually quitting is still to be decided, but this is a shortage of employees that we can actually experience on a daily basis, at least here in Silicon Valley. The main reason for that is that people want to do two things. They want to get control of their time, and they also want to do things that matter to them. And those are two elements that are making the a movement of a workflow of talent more and more towards two things. One is the potential of becoming entrepreneurs, in particular in countries where entrepreneurship is one of the major potential growth path for young talent, and not necessarily young. But a second part is also to move into what is called the impact investing directly with proper capital, but also with proper resources. And that, I think, is turning into a global opportunity. We're seeing more and more cross-border business relationships that are being built, and we see this as a macro trend that will be accelerating. And it is something that is not just specific to a nation or to a geography, but it's something that has global proportions. And this flow, this great resignation is accelerating a path that was already ongoing. And on that one, we do believe that entities as Born to Global are really in a position to create these opportunities at the very international level, the potential of putting together entities that have maybe a similar path, but growing from very different geographies. We do believe that this is going to shape the next big wave of business opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marinucci, for your wonderful speech. He elaborated on how Silicon Valley is an epicenter of the innovation and its growth, and the IPO boom that's happened recently, and unicorns and their exit strategy. And we'll now move on to the startup partnership pairs. We'll start off with Mr. Yoon Suk, co-founder and CEO of CER, who has partnered up with Mr. Andres Aranda Martinez, CEO of American Climate Solutions, to tackle the CO2 emission issues in the Latin American region, mainly focusing on the burning of brick kiln. And please welcome Mr. Lee to the stage.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be host. I'm very pleased to be on the stage today to explain a little bit more about what InnoCSR is doing together with ACS in Mexico. As you can see, we're in the brick business, and we are today going to show you a little bit about eco-friendly, non-fired bricks that we're going to manufacture in Mexico. Pictures speak a lot more than the words in terms of the problems that the brick kilns are causing globally, mainly burning coals and especially in Latin America, trees, and whatsoever that you can find in the community to generate the heat. And this causes not only the CO2 air pollution, but black carbon, SOx, NOx, various different kinds of PMs that are hurting the climate at the moment very severely. And as you can see, it also involves migrant workers, social issues, on child labor issues, and women inequality issues as well. We're partnering with American Climate Solutions, and as you can see, our Mexico partner, led by Andres Aranda Martinez, has been performing in Mexico, Paraguay, and Colombia, and they're very well connected to the brick kilns in Mexico. Whereas my company, InnoCSR, we were founded in 2013 in Korea, and we operate mainly in South Asia. We have our operative positions in Nepal, Indonesia, Cambodia, Myanmar, but going to Pakistan, Bangladesh, and etc. Our expected effect of the joint venture is rapid growth and rapid expansion with the technology from my company, as well as the market from the ACS. A little bit more explanation from my part in terms of the technology that we are in charge of. The good brick system, which composes of soil, cement, and soil stabilizer, forms a non-fired bricks. The composition goes through a hydraulic brick press machine, and it produces a very fine-shaped, very strong bricks that are able to be used for 50-plus years. We're eco-friendly because we don't burn. There's a lot higher productivity, and we're labor-friendly. And in Mexico, which ACS will explain much more later, there are 20,000 brick kilns producing 6 billion bricks per year. Environmental impact. This is a very, very hot topic that everybody is talking about these days. Because we do not burn, if we are able to convert the brick kilns that are firing into our good brick system, each manufacturing site is expected to reduce about 3,000 to 4,000 tons of CO2 per year. There's more than 300,000 sites globally. And in Nepal, where we're concentrating at the moment, there's 1,600 brick kilns. This means by 2025, if we hit our target, then we will be reducing more than 1 million tons of CO2 in South Asia, but also in Latin America with ACS, more than 1 million tons of CO2 per year. Good brick system increases productivity significantly, meaning that we shorten the production time from normally 28 days to 5 days. This is cutting 80% of the production time. Also, we manufacture indoors, so we're not bound by any kind of weather restrictions or time restrictions. So this expands the productivity of the brick manufacturers, which means more revenue, more sales for these guys. So they have actually nothing to lose, but only to gain. Good brick system requires less manpower. Right now, a lot of them are migrant workers who have all gone back to their hometown, and getting together 200, 300 people post-pandemic season is not really possible. So we're also tackling on that issue. Good brick system definitely meets the international standard of the bricks, delivering more than 8 megapascal. As you can see on the bottom right corner, on the left is a fire brick, and on the right is a good bricks from the same company that have transitioned. Mexico brick industry, as you can see, as I mentioned, there's more than 20,000 brick kilns in Mexico alone, producing 6 billion bricks per year. This means, but compared with Nepal, where we're operating heavily, there's 1,600 kilns in Nepal, but they're also producing 6 billion bricks. This means that in Mexico, there are a lot of small artisanal producers of bricks that needs to be developed much more. So thanks to ACS, we'll be partnering with the government of Mexico, the municipal government of Guadalajara, and all that. Now, let me pass my baton to our partner, Andres, from ACS, and he will be explaining a little bit more about our project in Mexico.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, all of you. I'm going to share my screen, if it's possible to have the control. And yes, I have. Okay. Thank you all. Greetings from Mexico and Guadalajara. As Sam tell before, we born about an important issue. That is, this is the pollution of the brick kilns. When I met Sam, we get together for one reason, in order to reduce the pollutants here in the metropolitan area of Guadalajara. And Sam and his product is an option to reduce this kind of pollutants. In this order, ACS has worked before with another institution in the international cooperation order, in order to have an equity market, to establish a regular market of bricks products. In this sense, we have already a lot of partners. In one of them is the German collaboration, the German cooperation, so the JZ and the GRB, also the government of the state of Jalisco, and the other institution like a climate and the clean air coalition. So in this sense, we try to establish a new kind of technology. We're trying to make a transition between the actual brick producers in order to have more opportunities to have a better condition of labor and a better quality of their products. So this joint venture will hire sales staffs and technical teams to sell new technology, and the good brick system will be assessed with currently in this project using proven experience in other countries in South Asia. This is the actual bricks kilns in Mexico. Brick kilns in Mexico, especially in Guadalajara. In Guadalajara, despite his growth, we have this kind of products, and this product is the base of the pyramid of the construction. And now, as I tell you before, we have a new alias in Mexico. These alias have a good opportunity to have this transition in the market. right now, I can share you with you the overview that where we stand now. We have starting a pilot project in order to use the product of InnoCSR. And this is the render of the project. We are starting to have the technology. We have now capacity building the brick producer in Mexico, especially in Guadalajara. And right now we're trying to bring the non-pipe bricks technology. We have already selected the machines. We have already made the proofs with the solid solidifier that InnoCRs provide us. And now we are contemplate the use of renewable energy in this kind of new processes. So this is a big challenge in Mexico because right now most of the 80% of the bricks comes to the artisanal way from the artisanal producers that they, as some tell us before, they generate a lot of social and environment problems. And for that reason, it's a little bit challenger to transit in this kind of new products. So in this order of ideas, we hope to start a production, the first production in 2022, sorry. And as every project, we have challenges of the transition. The challenges now is how we can promote a new transition of the bricks producers. So in these ideas, we started with a few persons to conform a cooperative. This cooperative are right now under a capacity building in cooperatives issues, and now with the governments, we are already promote the permits to can promote the technology, the production next year. And then we have another challenge at transition, the site where we stand with the producers right now. They have energy technical issues, so we are exploring now the energy technical transition option to feasibility benefits to arrange the connectivity energy in order to connect to the production. Another challenge that we note is the new market creation. This new market is different than the others because we are facing with the social and environment problems. But for that reason, we created this association with the government and international cooperation. And the other challenges of this transition is the sustainable finance model, where this kind of brick producers, they don't have already access to sustainable model. And for that reason, we arranged the finance issues in order to get the other financial credit that we need to start to operate. Right now, we have a seed finance to start next year. And like a little bit overview that where we are, Guadalajara is at a little bit north of Mexico. This is the city, and this is ironic that one of the most important cities of Mexico, we have a lot of this kind of products. So I don't know if you can share us what is the model in order to replicate to scale this model.
Sure.
Yeah.
So our team, when we were doing business in South Asia, and we're still doing it, we have successfully manualized the whole process. And we have a team of geoengineers, chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, and civil engineers that are putting efforts all together into this. So this manual is going to Latin America and Mexico, to the city of Guadalajara. And InnoCSR team will fully support the joint venture and with the technology to ACS team. And we believe that the manualized model is very much replicable, and we can easily scale up, and it is very, very sustainable. We're also backed up by the Asia Development Bank, InnoCSR itself. And the reason I have this slide up on a World Bank conference is because I wanted to emphasize that we need to hold hands together. We're getting also a lot of interest from other MDBs, namely IDB, namely GCF, and other intergovernmental organizations as well as the government of Mexico and other governments in Latin America. We need to hold hands for this together because we have the solution and it has been proven, and this needs to be solved together with the industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee and Mr. Martinez. I guess these two business ventures could be called as a real team, as they showed a perfect example of an effective partnership. Hopefully, InnoCSR and ACS could further expand their business venture together. And now, our next startup pair is Mr. Park Tae-jin, manager at Vernect, and David Alva, co-founder and COO of Proximity. Together, they are aiming to create a complete solution to tackle the many safety issues within the high-risk industry areas with their AR and VR solution. So now, Mr. Park, please go ahead with your presentation.
Let me just quickly share my screen. Right. Now, thank you very much for a nice introduction. And I would like to start off by expressing a sincere gratitude towards the Ministry of Economy and Finance and IDB team for having me here today. So for today's talk, I would like to talk about who we are and what amazing values we create here at Vernect, and how these values are being shared with our business partner in Peru, Proximity. And David Alva, the co-founder of Proximity, will talk about his plans on execution of delivering our values to local mining industry. Right. Can full screen it? Yeah. So, moving forward, what is Vernect? Vernect engineers disruptive XR technology to add values across the value chain of industrial enterprises. Since the inaugural year 2016, we have been tripling our sales revenue, and hence we are known as the industrial XR leader in South Korea. As of this year, we are seeking to go global. So this is Vernect's product suite. Vernect Remote is multi-location collaboration solution. We got Vernect Make and View, knowledge transferring tools. These products are going to be shared to the mining industry in Peru, but at the earlier stage of our project, we will be focusing on Vernect Remote. The advantage of these products are that these products are compatible with various smart devices, including Microsoft's HoloLens 2, 360-degree neckband, drones, and even a robot. So we've got these amazing XR-powered products, and what problems are we resolving? Firstly, difficulty in knowledge acquisition. Second, inefficiency in communication. So in an era of digital age, the amount of data being produced daily in these mining sites are enormous. And hence, these on-site technicians ironically, have difficulty in retrieving these data when they need it, and moreover, converting these data into knowledge. So hence, we've got knowledge transferring tools, Vernect Make and View. With Vernect Make, anyone can create immersive XR content without needing to write a single line of code. You can think of this as like a 3D version of PowerPoint. Once the XR content is created, it works across the various realities, including VR glasses, mixed reality, and augmented reality for on-site workers to intuitively understand the required information. VerNet Remote is a multi-location collaboration solution that connects frontline workers with remote experts. It leverages various IT functionalities and features, such as translation features, so that the users can translate up to 10 different languages. So our solutions have been overcoming industrial challenges in most safely, efficiently, and conveniently in South Korea. So we have these amazing products that's working very well in South Korea, and that's been recognized by conglomerates like Samsung, Hyundai, and LG in South Korea. And we wondered, why not share these amazing values with the rest of the world? And thanks to IDB Lab, we've been matched with Proximity, VR solution provider. And the main objectives of our partnership and for this IDB Lab project is, firstly, bridging the digital gap through the technological innovation for the mining industry in Peruvian market. Second objective is to increasing the competency of a startup in developed country by sharing know-hows of a startup from South Korea to build inclusive digital economy. Sorry. So how do you go about achieving our goals? These are the value propositions. Our VerNet remote solution is applicable in maintenance, inspection, and training areas. So for instance, for maintenance, currently the mining equipment vendors, when they sell products to their customers, they send over field engineers to perform calibration. And it normally costs them $5,000. For this case, it was between Argentina to Peru. Now, even this isn't a viable option because due to COVID-19, so they perform remote calibration using uncomfortable mobile phones. Now, they can use hands-free VerNet's remote telepresence tool to get the jobs done much faster, effectively, and cost efficiently. Another applicable area is in inspection. Unfortunately, many of these upper management from these mining industry were let go due to COVID-19. So they lack human resources and they cannot go travel and check upon the progress of the project in person. So they currently use 360-degree cameras to take still images. Now, they can use 360 degrees neckband to perform live streaming in remote sites to check upon the progress of the projects. Another use case is in training. The Peruvian legislature allowed to issue remote training certificates. Now, these mining companies are leveraging this and they are creating e-learning content. Most of these contents are written in texts, and it's not, easy to understand text. So they can now use VerNet remote solution to take video records of first point videos, and hence increasing the quality of e-learning content, and hence increasing the knowledge retention. Now, this value propositions are being introduced to our mining industries, and these mining customers, the feedbacks are that these value propositions are innovative and it's perfect fitting to their needs. And I think it's because that David, our partner, and I have been really paying close attention to analyzing the value chains of the customers. Now, when we look at the conventional value chain, it starts from inbound logistics to outbound and whatnot. Now, when we look very closely to mining companies' value chain, it really starts from exploration stage where these field engineers try to find where the ores are underneath the ground, and then the value chain moves to mining these ores, and then turning these ores into different kinds of metals, and then the value chain moves to various transportational channels. Now, when we look at our value chain, Vernex and Proximity, the XR solution providers value chain, we start from designing of the functionality and IT features. And we develop these IT features and then deploy our systems to customer server or the cloud server. Now, in order to truly create a value that matters for the customers, we have to place ourselves into customers' shoes. And only then we can create a true value that customers values. So as a business developer's job, my job is to intertwining Vernex and Proximity's value chain with the customer's value chain. And I believe this will create a sustainable value innovation in Peruvian mining industry. So our goal, well, we are hoping that to achieve the following outcomes. First, increasing the technological adoption to reduce the skill gap within the mining industrial workers, digitally transform these mining industry sites, and hence increase the sustainability, and hopefully increase the Peruvian GDP and export, since Peruvian government heavily relies on mining industry. Now, that will be all for my presentation, and thank you for listening. I will now hand over to David Alva, who will be talking about his plans on execution of the local market development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen, and thank you all event organizers on behalf of the Proximity team for the opportunity to highlight our global partnership with Vernex. Go on.
So thank you very much, Mr. Park, for your presentation. It's certainly happy to see that the promising venture and businesses going out in the world. And now, as Mr. Park has said, Mr. Alva, now the floor is yours, so please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you very much. I got a head start right there. So my name is David Alva. I'm the co-founder and the CMO of Proximity. And in my part of the presentation, I would like to give a brief introduction into what we do at Proximity, as well as share some more details into the context, the goals, and the first steps around the execution of our joint project. I'll be asking to please help me with passing the slide. So please, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so first, at Proximity, we define ourselves as an end-to-end immersive training platform. We're using virtual reality to deliver better and safer training for the workforce, and we aim to improve and ultimately transform how traditional training model is used in most industries, which is one that's based currently on a mix of easy to deploy but ineffective classroom training, and that's mixed with dynamic but inefficient field training. And we aim to replace this with the ultimately much better, efficient, and effective immersive training. Next slide, please. So through immersive virtual training, what can we do? We can basically improve knowledge retention rates and worker confidence compared to traditional learning methods, while also delivering 4 times faster training and 0 risks for workers. In simple terms, we deliver better training at lower cost. And we've also measured the results of our own solution in the market with customers such as MMG and Poderosa, both very big mining operations in Peru that have managed to reduce by over 90% the amount of failing evaluations in certain safety tasks, as well as completely replaced physical presence-based field training with our immersive training solution. So we have very real results on the impact right there. Next slide, please. So to deliver this value, what are we doing? We're basically integrating the necessary components needed for an organization to deploy this type of training at scale, going beyond what is commonly seen in the space as pilot projects. So what are these components? Basically, it's content, platform, and certification. I'll be going a brief overview of each one of these. Firstly, content based on a catalog of VR and 360 modules for safety training and onboarding, platform for streamlined development, deployment, and management, and certification delivered through partnerships with local institutions. Next slide, please. So in terms of our content, we include various modules and scenarios for a variety of high-risk procedures common in industries like mining, energy, and construction. Next slide. And our platform offers data and performance tracking, allow our trainers to view various metrics such as critical mistakes, accidents, time, and passing grades. Next slide, please. And also delivering this with multi-platform support for different devices. That way we ensure that our content is available and accessible to all types of organizations and different types of users of different levels of technological skill and accessibility. Next slide, please. So after going around this brief introduction to proximity, I'd like to go over the context in which proximity and Vernic are delivering value through their collaboration. Since proximity is based in Peru, we're targeting the local mining industry, which is ideal for our proof of concept project. This industry is currently responsible for over 10% of the country's GDP, as well as 60% of its exports, making an ideal opportunity for growth and impact. First, for this, what are some of the existing industry inefficiencies we're currently seeing? For example, field training is, as I mentioned before, time-consuming and risky. This means that workers, in most cases, are required to travel to specialized off-site locations for training. On the other side, we have also inspection operations, as Jin mentioned earlier in his presentation, which requires deploying supervisors from HQ to remote sites in order to gain operational visibility. And both of these operations are done basically through traditional methods, which are expensive and time-intensive. Now, what COVID-19 has done is basically accentuate the inefficiencies of both procedures. Field training, for example, has been, in most cases in Peru, altogether suspended due to safety and health restrictions and regulations. And transportation of workers for inspection and for maintenance is no longer accessible and even viable under these types of COVID restrictions and safety practices. Next slide, please. So after outlining and overviewing through our experience in this industry, some of the challenges we had, we took upon to define our core value proposition in order to address these issues. Now, what we've quickly found is that companies don't view this necessarily as a training problem or an inspection problem. They basically view this as an operational problem, which has been accentuated by COVID. And the solution for them is not a VR solution or an AR or XR solution. It's basically an integrated digital transformation approach. They view us not as a VR or AR company, but as one that offers solutions to technology. For this, proximity as an immersive learning through VR provider, and Vernic using industrial telepresence through augmented and XR technologies, we found that our packaged solutions approach would offer, basically in simple terms, increased safety, effectiveness, and skills, helping companies reduce costs and increase safety for workers. And with this in the practice is basically eliminates the need for workers to transport themselves to off-site locations for training and operational procedures like inspection and maintenance, particularly in the COVID-19 context. Next slide, please. So what are some of the core and practical goals we had for the project? Basically, we outlined 3 impact-based goals we set out to deliver. First, it is to deliver training and upskilling for over 1,200 high-risk workers in the mining industry through our immersive learning solution. We also aim to improve safety and efficiency for 6 large-scale mining operations through remote training and operation solution delivered through Vernic. And finally, to establish this project as a successful use case, which will help us expand our partnership into other countries, such as Canada and Chile, and also Mexico, where proximity is beginning to initiate operations. Next slide, please. Now, what are some of the additional steps we're taking towards execution of this project? We're still at very much the early stage, but we've outlined 3 core stages of this project, basically validating our value proposition. We do this through proximity's industry knowledge first. also by consulting through mining experts and validating with existing customer base that Proximity has already worked with. This, as Jin mentioned earlier in his presentation, has yielded the feedback that our current proposal for solutions through XR technologies basically is very much fit to solve some of the issues these companies have in training and inspection, which is why we're focusing on those core procedures. After that, we're currently in the stage of preparing product and resources. Why product? Because this means that we need to ready our product, for example, Vernix remote solution, to some of the challenges and core features of the Peruvian market, such as localization for the Spanish language. This also means in this stage to prepare all types of marketing assets, procure demo hardware for all of our meetings with potential customers, as well as product testing internally for us to currently understand what are the specific strengths of our core products, particularly learning about Proximity's products and Proximity learning about Vernix products. And after that, finally, going into the implementation of pilot stage, where we're leveraging our leads from our current customer and partner network, delivering on a digital marketing campaign and measuring results and impact in order to sustain this use case and take this POC to other countries like Canada and Chile and Mexico. Next slide, please. So we found an opportunity in the short term where Proximity and Vernix could meet. That was in AWE 2021, the industry's most important XR event. We took this opportunity to showcase both products and use cases at a global scale and also get feedback. Also, try out Proximity Vernix remote solution and get first-hand training, which we will need later for demos for potential customers. And finally, after months of working on the planning stage of the project, having the opportunity for both teams to meet after all this planning through Zoom after various months. Next slide, please. So these are some pictures we took at the conference. We got some excellent feedback on our product, and I think it was a great opportunity for Vernix to also view firsthand how our training modules offer a much more powerful, efficient, and effective method for learning through immersive and interactive simulations. Next slide, please. We also got to do some product testing. Vernix got to try out our immersive learning solution, as well as Proximity trying out Vernix remote solution, which, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be needed for all our implementation and demo stages in the project. Next slide, please. And in regards to digital marketing assets, I mentioned that we're currently at an early stage of the project, but we've been able to already create some assets that will help us create a pipeline for these potential customers in the mining industry, such as a web landing page and some one-pagers and assets such as brochures. Next slide, please. And in terms of software localization, Vernix done a wonderful job in quickly customizing their whole software suite of remote to the Spanish language, and also some of the translation features that will be used by workers in mining operations. So this was already a great head start. And next slide, please. And to wrap things up, basically, what are some of the next steps that we're looking to? Like I mentioned, it's leveraging some of Proximity's customer base. Some of these customers represent a large part of Peru's GDP. For example, MMG is one of Proximity's customers, and they themselves represent 1% of the Peruvian GDP. So impact in just one of these or two of these companies is already generating value for important actors in this space, as well as their whole customer and worker base. After that, we also aim to deploy traditional and digital marketing strategies. This means the digital marketing campaign through our landing page, as well as having a presence in some of the world's main main mining conferences, such as Expomina and Benumin, which are both held in Peru. And finally, driving this success will help us provide a path for expansion to partnership in Canada, Chile, and Mexico, where Proximity is already beginning operations, and where this POC will help us basically replicate the strategy of success, which we are looking to achieve, to other countries in the region. And next slide, please. And that would be all for my part of the presentation. Again, thank you very much for having us at Proximity for this overview of the project. Thank you to our partners at Bernick. And we are definitely continuing to work on our goal to deliver impact to more workers in the mining space through integrated XR solutions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Alva, for your presentation. We know for the fact that a lot of military forces around the world is utilizing their latest tech for unmanned operation for the safety of the soldier and its efficiency. And I guess a high-risk industry is just as dangerous as the military operation, and hopefully this sort of collaboration and smart partnership could promote the safety and the efficiency, and always exciting to see these kind of operation and partnership working together. And thank you to all 4 startups for showcasing your brilliant partnerships to tackle the many social issues within the Latin American region. And it is now time for the panel discussion session, where 4 experts in the startup ecosystem from different entities will come together to discuss how the ecosystem is adapting to the digital transformation and green growth. And for this, it's my great pleasure to introduce the session's moderator, Mr. Kim Jong-gap, the Chief Executive Director for Born to Global Center. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Kim Jong-gap to the stage.
Finally, we have a last session. Welcome to join the last session. And today, we have a very great and fantastic partner and friend from all over the world, which can dedicate the ecosystem building and evangelize entrepreneurship or startup innovation process. From all the way from the Mexico, which is a LATAM area, and Egypt, which can cover the Africa, and Singapore, which can talk about the Southeast Asia market current situation. And also we invite the United States from San Francisco. And then we will talk about how the COVID-19 impact the startup ecosystem, and what's the post Corona-19, what will be the changing we can expect it. We want to discuss about that. And add on that, we'll talk about how the global collaboration between startup ecosystem to ecosystem. That's what I want to discuss today. And first, I want to introduce today's panelists. First, it's Rogelio Cuevas, the CEO of the Central, which is Mexico City located. And he's, I think, the main player which he can promoting, accelerating the startup ecosystem in the LATAM area. And they are working with the Google also, and they are operating lots of the program to enhance and promoting the scale up of the startup in the LATAM area. And Iman Wabi, the general partner of the Grow in Africa Fund. She is in charging as a general partner of Grow in Africa Fund, which is a high growth impact fund that invests in all the stage after product market fit at the local market, and try to expand their business in the all Africa region. She was a main role to evangelize the startup ecosystem in the Africa area. And also, she has been working with the World Bank over 10 years, and she was charging in the Egypt World Bank program with about the $2 billion project. So I think that she can talk about the very, for us, unknown area of the African startup. What's the situation right now? And also we invite we have the Alan Kwan Su, which is a general partner of KK Fund of Singapore. And he's in charging as a founder and the general partner. He's in charging the international the strategy and operation of the fund. And he really evangelized and really dedicate to the collaboration between nation-to-nation startup together. And he really willing to invest that kinds of cross-border operation investment. And then the last, we have Klaus von Wihag, the CEO of the 10X Innovation Lab, which is located in San Francisco. And he's kind of the celeb style of the evangelist and accelerator. People he joined set up the 10X Innovation Lab. He was the head of the international relationship of the Silicon Valley Forum. This is a very heritage and very influential, the forum, non-profit organization like a community forum. And when I was in the San Francisco, I was so many times attended the forum, and I learned entrepreneurship and what's the innovation and what's the collaboration. And he will talk about today different angle of the global cross-border business of that. So this is 4 people. It's a great people joined today panelists, and we'll talk about more detail what's the situation right now and what will be the next stage of the startup area. So I'm gonna start in the Mexico first. So I'm gonna asking the Rogelio Cobes. You are the Central is Ponto Global's main partner of the Deep Tech Exchange Program, which is driven by the IDB. And today we have 2 presentations to showing up what's the result out about the joint venture initiative. And do you think this Deep Tech Exchange Program can help under the COVID-19 for the startups?
Hi. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here with you in the panel. Yes, actually, we partnered with Born to Global and with IDB to establish these partnerships between startups from Latin America and startups from South Korea to try to develop some solutions and some partnerships that can help provide solutions for the post-pandemic world in LATAM. As you probably know, Latin America has been one of the regions that has been hit the hardest because of the pandemic. So we are really looking forward to having this end. But in the meantime, these partnerships are developing really interesting solutions to what's going to happen afterwards. It is important mentioning that the projects are long-term. We are still at the beginning of each of them. So we're developing still, the technology, the go-to-market strategies. But since we share many, Latin America is similar in every specific market, there may be like great potential for them, for the solutions to scale. But it's still going to be like a long-term project. And yeah, we're expecting to see great solutions from mining, education, different sectors that can help Latin America come out of the pandemic.
Okay. Then what about not only the pandemic situation, but we talk about today a lot of the digital transformation and the green growth or green transformation. Is a cross-border international collaboration between startup to startup? Do you think it can help the more accelerate the digital transformation and the green transformation?
Yeah, potentially. And your point is very right. Actually, Latin America is like a huge region. Unfortunately, we're not really taking care of our resources. We've been blessed with unlimited resources. You wouldn't believe. It's a very rich region. But we're seeing distress in many parts of Latin America, from the Amazons, the Patagonia, even Mexico, all over the place. And unfortunately, this is not the best time in terms of having the right political alignment between the different countries that constitute Latin America. So even though we do share some challenges regionally, it is being very difficult to address them politically, because like some the countries are addressing climate change and also the pandemic situation very on a case by case. So there is really not like an integrated solution to these problems. So and this is an interesting point because like we say nature hates the void. So this is actually a good opportunity for startups and for the startup ecosystem to develop interesting ideas and solutions to help tackle those challenges. So I think on the bright side, there may be some interesting opportunities for startups from Latin America and also for startups from overseas that can come and help us tackle those challenges.
Okay. Can you a little bit more explanation of what's the issue for example, green growth area, as a foreign startup to enter the Latin market? What kind of the typical issue to solve the green problem on the Latin market?
Well, one of the main ones, and in this particular topic, of course, there are some differences between the regions, but one of the main points is, of course, energy. Latin America is a region that still needs to grow much more rapidly, and we need to develop new sources of energy to basically reach that growth on a sustainable way. So, for example, Mexico is a much more industrialized country. So we need to have like that energy for some of the different industrial clusters that we have in the country, so that we can be more competitive against China to supply goods to the US, to the North American market, our main partners, the US and Canada. In the case of Brazil and some of the other big players, the cases are similar. Energy is one big challenge. And then, of course, in terms of agriculture, how we do it in a more sustainable way. As you probably know, the Amazon is basically decreasing by the day. Mm-hmm. So there is huge challenges to find new ways to exploit the land in a sustainable way and to help people develop, basically. So those two are very, very important.
Thank you for sharing that. My last question on that. To solve the digital transformation and the green growth issue, what kinds of the government activity involved in that to solve the problem from the LATAM?
Well, unfortunately, as I mentioned previously, there is not much government involvement at this point, and they are actually acting separately. So, for example, in the case of Mexico, we know that at some point we will need to move to more sustainable fuels and sustainable energy. But while all of this is happening, and we know that we will need to supply electric vehicles to the North American market, while all of this is happening, we're also building a new refinery, even though oil is declining very rapidly in Mexico. So it's one of those tricky situations. And it's happening the same thing all over the place. It's happening the same in Argentina, in Brazil, and I'm mentioning those because those are the biggest markets. But it's been challenging, and there is again no real structure, no public policies that are unifying the region, and even country by country, the government is very behind in all of this.
That means in the private sector, more opportunity to jumping in and solving the existing problem, right?
That's correct. And we're hopeful that the private sector will have the right incentives to do so, because even in some countries, the governments are deterring some of the incentives for private investors to come and basically start investing in our economies. That is the case in Mexico, where the government is trying to take control back of the energy sector and then going back to all fossil fuels instead of going to more green sources of energy. So it's gonna take a while, and I think it's probably gonna take like unfortunately, like a tough warning from nature that we have to act on solving those problems and create the right incentives to, yeah, to move faster.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you very much.
And I have another question for the Iman Wabi. Yeah. By the way, what time is the Cairo?
It's 4 a.m. over here.
I'm so sorry that too early morning. Thank you for joining too early morning. I wanted to asking you to introduce your company first and the general situation of the startup ecosystem in Africa. I want to hear about that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the kind invitation. Let me start by sharing actually what we're trying to do at our fund. So it's an impact fund that we're trying to and we're helping companies to expand beyond their borders, because in some cases you find a business that's it's up and running and doing very well in one country, and their solution or their product is actually needed in across the continent. The good thing about the African market, we're talking about 1.2 billion people in the African continent, and this is projected to increase into 1.7 billion by 2030. You have a rising middle class, you have urban population, lots of demand on new services and products. And the great thing is that the continent already managed to leapfrog in several sectors. So, for instance, if we talked about the traditional banking, now we see fintech is doing great, mobile banking is doing great. So we hope that we see the same happening in other sectors, like leapfrogging the fossil fuel growth. Korea is a global leader when it comes to digital transformation, when it comes to artificial intelligence and green growth. So we see a lot of potential for collaboration, of course, in these sectors.
Okay. And what's the situation in the Corona-19? Are there the same situation in other country, or some specific different situation in Africa as a startup ecosystem?
Well, in actually COVID is a kind it's disrupted the ecosystem and motivated entrepreneurs to disrupt many industries. If we see, for instance, edtech, it has been doing great since the start of COVID. Entrepreneurs rose up to the challenge and actually developed several solutions to help school children who are staying at home and to continue with the remote learning in different ways. We've seen the AR coming also into the edtech revolution in Africa, and it's happening across, for instance, e-mobility. We see this happening and it's growing. Clean energy, I'm glad to see we're very much similar with Latin America. So with clean energy, again, entrepreneurs, they develop certain solutions to help address this challenge, because although Africa it's the region that contributes the least to the greenhouse gases, it's very much impacted by climate change, and many of the African countries actually rely on hydropower to generate their electricity. So clean energy is a very important sector for us, and we see more developments. And I think with COVID and the importance of the reliability of electricity, of course, this takes us to another sector, which is industrialization and manufacturing. This is a huge opportunities. This is a very important sector over here that's presents vast investment opportunities as well.
Yeah. And another curiosity of the African startup ecosystem is there many kinds of the private sector player like investment venture capitalist or accelerator or sort of those thing, or what's the relationship between the public sector and the private sector of the Africa startup ecosystem?
Absolutely. We have lots of players when it comes to venture capital. You have also the different DFIs, the development financial institutions of the major governments. We have the French, the American active. We have many global players over here. We have lots of private sector activity as well, because the one opportunity that's very important also to mention is that African countries started to adopt the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which means that if you are operating in one country, you can access the rest of the 52 countries without the usual custom duties, and you have access to the rest of the markets. This is very important because if you're speaking about the continent is very rich when it comes to raw materials and mining. Country like the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, they are very rich with the needed materials for semiconductors, for batteries, so for EV batteries. So it's very rich continent in that regard. So you have private players looking at the continent, some of them operating, and we hope to see actually more players from Korea in the continent, whether it's a private sector. For instance, in Rwanda, Korea Telecom is very active over there. We hope to see more VCs investing in the continent, and also we hope to see more startups realizing the potential of the different sectors over here. You have huge market opportunity for them to grow and to scale up their solutions and their products across the continent.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing on that. And my last question is not question. Can you give us advice how we approached the African startup ecosystem to work with that? Is there any certain your advice point to giving us to share?
Absolutely. So one thing it would start with looking at the competitive advantage of the Korean startups and the key sectors they excel in at, and then we start, to look at the countries where their solution, where their product would be very much needed, and then we would love, of course, to see more investments coming from Korea to help them scale up their solution, their product, and also it's not just this is entirely about the collaboration. You work with young entrepreneurs in Africa. You build the skills, the human capital of the African youth. It's about really. In Africa, they love, of course, the Korean dramas and music, but they would love to see you on the ground over here, working with them and collaborating across the various sectors. It's extending more of the soft power of Korea, of course.
Thank you. And I wish we will see more oftenly next year. And then I want to talk with Mr. Alan, the general partner of the KK Fund. He's in charge of Southeast Asia market, and I know that you travel a lot, different country by country, to finding out the good technology and the good company. So what's can you tell us what's the situation under the Corona-19 situation as a startup ecosystem in Southeast Asia market?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be with an esteemed panel. I have to say that Born to Global is our very, very good partner in Korea, as was shared. For us, KK Fund, we are headquartered in Singapore. We invest throughout Southeast Asia, and we have been working on establishing relationship for not just startups, but also investors, corporates, and governments between Korea and Southeast Asia. We are very excited about what we're seeing developing in Southeast Asia and what can be applied to the greater market. In terms of your question, what is happening on the ground in Southeast Asia as it relates to COVID? I think every country is facing their specific set of challenges. For example, in Singapore, where I am based, we went through different phases where we had, let's say, less than 50 cases a day to all of a sudden 3,000 cases a day, and now it's normalizing a little bit. And also it fluctuated between opening up the borders to other countries within Southeast Asia or beyond, as well as having more stricter travel controls. And as many of you may know, Singapore's economy is very much required in terms of working with many of the different countries, not just in Southeast Asia, but beyond, for example, with Korea. For example, a VC like myself, before COVID, we used to have to travel almost every week to each of the countries in Southeast Asia, whether it's deal sourcing or collaborating with our partners or talking to governments. That was the norm of life, not just for VCs, but also for startups as well in the region. For example, a Singapore startup cannot only be successful in Singapore. The market, unfortunately, is quite limited, but they have to expand to other countries within Southeast Asia. So I think, yes, 2020, I would say that all the activities have unfortunately come to a halt, as many of us investors were more worried and concerned about our existing portfolio companies. But I'm very glad to share that in 2021, things are very much looking very bright in Southeast Asia. And in fact, in Southeast Asia, in this year alone, 19 that is, 19 new unicorns has been created in Southeast Asia in just 2021, out of a total of 35 unicorns in the whole Southeast Asia region. So you can see the amount of optimism. There are a lot of activities happening. So yes, as Mr. Kim shared, we do travel quite often between Korea and Southeast Asia, and we would encourage not just startups from Korea, but even startups from other regions to visit Southeast Asia and to explore collaboration opportunities.
Okay. And I'm very curious about what will be your investment strategy after Corona-19? Is it the same as, or it can be changing differently?
Yes, so I would not say that it has shifted 180 degrees, but as with startups, people pivot here and there, make adjustments, and so are investors looking at Southeast Asia regions. We are adjusting our investment approach, our investment philosophy as well. So, for example, let's say give a example in terms of deal sourcing and due diligence. Now, Southeast Asian VCs are having to rely a lot more on referral checks, character references, etc., rather than doing everything on Zoom. As many of us would probably know, it is very difficult to be able to have a full sense of the startup if you just do due diligence over Zoom. So that has certainly changed. It also, given that shift, it has led to a higher concentration of capital to fewer startups because, if, for example, a startup is well known in the ecosystem, there is a natural tendency for VCs to all want to invest and be involved with that one startup. So we're seeing a higher concentration of capital, but I think that also because this year is the first time in Southeast Asia that there is a local IPO story of a local unicorn. So this is a story of Bukalapak, which IPO'd earlier this year on the Indonesian Stock Exchange. So we're starting to see reasonable size exits in Southeast Asia, in the local market, and not having to rely on, an exchange in the U.S., let's say Nasdaq, or NYSE, or even Hong Kong exchange for the exit. So I think that really gives a boost of confidence to many investors, saying that yes, the previous let's say, worry about the whole Southeast Asia ecosystem is the lack of exits. But now, Southeast Asia has proven that we can facilitate our own exit in our local market. And so that is also fueling, a surge in interest from global investors. And more recently, last week, there was a SPAC listing by Southeast Asia's biggest startup company, Grab. They listed on NASDAQ. And again, that also gives another boost to investor confidence. So we're seeing a lot more confidence in investing into the region, a lot more confidence in terms of realizing exits. So this is a really good time for investors, as well for startups as well, to examine the Southeast Asia ecosystem and perhaps include Southeast Asia as part of your roadmap going forward.
Okay. And the other question I have is recently so many people talk about the green issue. And I think the Southeast Asia market also has a huge challenging to solve the green issue. Do you think, I believe that, not only the digital transformation, but the green transformation can help to solving the challenging or issue. Is that any way to global collaboration between the startup to overcome or solving that kinds of a huge challenge of the green issue in South Asia market, and what kinds of challenging do you see at the Southeast Asia market on that?
Sure. Thank you for the question. This is a very important topic in Southeast Asia. Yes, I shared about the successes of unicorns, but unfortunately, none of that is still addressing to me, the most long-term critical issue facing Southeast Asia, which is in terms of sustainability and also for the environment. I think if any of you visit Southeast Asia, it would be great to see a very green environment. Yes, that is true for certain parts, but also unfortunately not so true for the rest of Southeast Asia. And what Temasek, Microsoft, and also Bain Consulting Company earlier this year, and I'm going to quote from them, they have together identified a US $2 trillion investment opportunity in green and sustainable solutions in Southeast Asia alone. $2 trillion. So we're not talking about B, we're getting into the $1 trillion range. And that goes on to show just how important and how critical the issue of being green, being sustainable is for the region of Southeast Asia. In terms of the investment sectors that I personally see would garner a lot of interest. Renewable energy, of course, because Southeast Asia, we are still quite dependent on fossil fuel. Also, many countries in Southeast Asia are providers of fossil fuel. So that will certainly take a multiple collaboration between not just the private sector, but also with public sectors as well. Who are within Southeast Asia and also globally. So we see that renewable energy as a huge opportunity for investment. Green buildings, for example, that's another, and construction. Real estate, as you also probably know, is a big component of GDP in Southeast Asia. And so how to turn that sector into more green with sustainable construction methods, for example. Green data, that's also one topic that is starting to come up. How to utilize data to, whether it's education to the actual construction of buildings and projects, how do you incorporate green into the entire life cycle? Of this. This is pretty important. The other one being logistics and transportation. As you probably know, that logistics remains to be a challenge in Southeast Asia. Again, for those of you who have traveled, you just need to try to get on a taxi and travel around the cities in Southeast Asia, and being stuck in traffic, you'll see exactly what I mean by that. So how do you incorporate not just electric vehicle, that is only one part of the solution, but a more green and sustainable way to run the entire transportation grid? That is of critical importance as well in many countries and cities in Southeast Asia. Last but not least, agriculture and food. This is a huge issue, and I think especially demonstrated during COVID last year. And just to share, Singapore, for example, is highly reliant on imports of many fruits, vegetables, meats, etc. So as you can imagine, when COVID impacts logistics and impacts the delivery of food, it's not only a question of producing food sustainably, but also how do you ensure that food gets distributed in a green and sustainable way throughout Southeast Asia. So these, I would say, are the main topics that I personally see having huge opportunity for investments and also for collaboration between investors, between corporates or MNCs and the government sector.
Thank you. And today we have two pair of the companies presentation which can collaborate in the solving some problem. What's your opinion? Do you like that, and do you want to invest on that?
Right. Obviously, I will need to do a lot more due diligence to get to know the team and for the team to know us. But yes, I would say that we as KK Fund, we are very, very excited about investments in this space, and we certainly welcome not just startups from Korea, but startups from all over the world who are interested in solving such issues in Southeast Asia. KK Fund, currently, we collaborate with Born to Global and many other Korean institutions to help the startups land in Southeast Asia, because it could sometimes be quite challenging for startups who have perhaps never traveled to Southeast Asia to all of a sudden say, okay, yes, there is an opportunity, and yes, I want to go, but I have no idea how. So that's where KK Fund comes in. Not only will we help these startups learn about Southeast Asia, but also introduce them to potential collaboration partners in the form of local companies and or MNCs with operations in Southeast Asia, but also as provider of capital, we will consider investing into them and helping them set up operations in Southeast Asia and connecting them to partners here as well. So again, I welcome all the startups who are interested in solving this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, and I hope these kinds of company can apply not only the Latin market but the other region also the same solution, and then maybe they can scale up very quickly, and we can change the world, I think. Lastly, thank you for joining the Klause. And I know that you are global accelerator at the Silicon Valley, and you're working with a different country. So, what's your opinion on under the COVID-19? All your related countries are doing well as a startup ecosystem viewpoint, or some struggle?
let me, I guess I just want to throw in a comment here in terms of Africa. I see that there are a lot of exciting stuff happening in that region, and also seeing a lot of Silicon Valley based companies looking to expand into the region. For example, Zipline, which is a Silicon Valley funded company that raised around $250 million. They actually picked Rwanda as an initial market to scale in, basically delivering medical supplies to people. So I hope to see these things much more in the future, where we see companies from even mature innovation ecosystems like Silicon Valley looking to establish their presence initially in emerging markets, because they see that they can solve a problem there that may be bigger than in their perceived home market. And in terms of collaboration between ecosystems, Born to Global, you, Jungkap, you're a great facilitator of collaboration between different countries. And so just want to plug in, obviously, our future collaboration in terms of helping us to essentially commercialize our new book, Global Class, which is essentially a book on how to build a global organization. So we have done a lot of research in terms of what's changing now in the marketplace when it comes to building organizations. And one of the very, very interesting things when it comes to organizational development is that we're actually seeing around 82% of executives looking at granting decision authority to the edges of the organization. So we're going to see much more fragmented organizations, distributed organizations in the very future, which will be interesting to see how that's going to impact ecosystems as well. To the point of Google and Facebook and so forth, they have very centralized structures in Silicon Valley. How will they look like in the future? Will they be much more distributed? Will they move a bit away from Silicon Valley and tap into emerging markets for top tier talent and so forth? I'm a big believer that the pandemic has certainly changed the game a bit, and certainly have pushed business to a new world, if you will. So it's going to be very, very, very interesting to see how the digital economy is going to look like in the future.
And I know that you are working with the different countries' government also.
Right.
Can you share how the government involvement as a startup ecosystem promotion and the building, and then how they help to solve the digital transformation and the green transformation problem? Is that certain your opinion or have at that?
I mean, I believe government is sometimes, what's the word, underappreciated when it comes to facilitation of business and supporting entrepreneurs and startups. I guess I'm from Denmark originally. I didn't say that earlier, but when you see Denmark, for example, they're very strong in renewable energy, but also what they have, the private sector has a strong backing of the government, really helping them to expand their business globally, provide subsidies, facilitate business interactions. For example, right now, Dubai and Denmark are establishing a lot, very, very big partnerships around the green economy and renewable energies and so forth. And so I believe government can come in with that muscle, especially also when it comes to when you work government to government, policy matters a lot, right? So how do you enable things through policy development and helping it to be easier to set up businesses in foreign markets, and essentially help really make those needed and very strategic connections into what oftentimes are very, very hard economies to tap into from a cultural perspective and so forth, right? So when you work alongside the government, you typically get a lot of respect. So an entrepreneur going to Dubai on a mission all of a sudden gets the respect, in that market, because they're associated with very respected organizations.
Yeah. And also how's the personal opinion today's presentation, the company? Do you have any advice to them?
I think I unfortunately didn't hear a lot of the presentations, but I think what I often see with entrepreneurs and startups, at least when they expand, is they often assume that the business model they developed in their initial market can be applied elsewhere. And so they often forget to sort of bring in that customer development mindset in terms of getting insight from customers and then adapt the business, because that's very much needed. But to the point of, the book that we're writing, what happens also when you expand and build a global organization, you also add a lot of complexity. So how do you balance localization and complexity is a very, very difficult challenge. And a lot of companies are struggling with that. But at the in particular around having the right mindset when you go into new markets is what I see being very much a challenge for many companies, even Silicon Valley-based companies. They think they can just go to international markets, just apply the model as is. To the point of Walmart in the 90s, they just came in with the Walmart model, and then they had greeters in the front door in Germany, and the German people freaked out, right? So you need to be culturally sensitive and also understand the regulatory aspects as you develop a business in new international markets.
Yeah, add on that, following your answer, actually one of the today's speakers, he mentioned about place mismatching. Yeah, not the human skills mismatching. I think while we're doing the joint venture initiative, this is a very right terms. So many places they don't know each other, and they try to focusing on their domain or domestic area solution with the relevant resource. So when you work with together with the central, we almost, the sourcing like all around the 200 company and the matchmaking process. And now the result is fantastic because they found out different sector and a different area, different region solution, but apply on their problem solving. So recently I heard about you talk about, international entrepreneurship. It's a very interesting, the terms to define not only the entrepreneurship, but based on that global business, global collaboration, we need another aspect of the requirement to do that business. Can you share that idea on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just as a foundation, I believe that the most successful ecosystems out there are typically those that are very globally minded, that has a global talent base at a local level. To the point of Singapore, perfect example. A lot of international influence, right? And are a growing ecosystem and are developing really, really great businesses in that market. And so in the book, we actually coin a new term, which is basically an evolution of entrepreneurship. So we have basically a term called an entrepreneur, which is, if you can imagine a pyramid with 3 layers. At the bottom, for the past 15 to 20 years, people have talked about the agile mindset and entrepreneurial mindset. That has given way to organizations wanting to have that for digital transformation and innovation initiatives, what we then call a company mindset, where they can then apply that agile mindset within an organization, but then really be strong in being able to build coalition and buy-in internally to drive those initiatives. But the tip of the iceberg is a cultural mindset, a global mindedness that really allows organizations, if they bring in these talent that both have an agile mindset and a company mindset and a global mindset, being able to localize the business internationally. Because if you can imagine, you're someone that leads international for an organization that goes to, let's say, Indonesia, that person needs to be agile because he needs to understand how he can adapt that business model in an international market. But at the same time, he needs to be able to influence the organization at home at the initial market to get buy-in so you can do those needed localizations. And at the same time, he needs to have that culture mindset because he needs to navigate a global organization, his company, at the same time also being able to connect with the local ecosystem and culture. So really having these 3 overarching strands of like skills are really, really important if you want to build a global organization. And I think for governments, when it comes to at least traditional economies, they need to promote this type of talent in different ways. One, through education, obviously, but also attracting global talent into the market. To the point of Denmark, very, very small country, we're terrible at that, even though we have international people in Denmark, but it's super hard to get in. It's super hard, even for my wife, to come to Denmark if I were to decide to go home. And that's a shame because I believe the best economies are those that attract the best talent and global talent as well. They can develop really, really strong entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem because innovation does not come just through looking at one lens. You need to have multiple different types of perspectives, diversity, and so forth to look at a problem and really innovate as organizations. So it's global and international minded talent are really, really important.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think Iman, I'm so sorry, it's almost 5 a.m. You couldn't sleep on that. Thank you for very early morning to joining us. And Alan, thank you. And Rogelio, also thank you. And today we talk about the global collaboration. And I wanted to keeping marching on it, how we connect very young or very brilliant idea owned startup people. They work together and they find out the niche solution and helping the world better, not only the digital transformation but the green transformation. But the problem is too far away. Even the Corona-19, they cannot travel each other and they don't know each other. That's, I think, the big hurdle. So I hope we'll more closely work together and introduce different regions, different solutions, different people, and make something. I don't know what it'll be, but I definitely sure it can be help for the global all better life. Thank you for today, and this is our last the GIGF forum. Thank you.
감사합니다.